Hey guys, Dr. Hansen here with Hansen Health Solutions. Listen, a really exciting research review for you guys today. That came straight out of Science Daily. Great resource for research news, but essentially the title is Antibiotics That Kill Gut Bacteria Also Stop the Growth of New Brain Cells. Huge implications here as far as how we approach infections, how much the health of our gut affects our long-term outcomes and short-term outcomes, not just with how well we are functioning neurologically in the short term after getting antibiotic treatment, for example, but also in the long term as we look at the probability of developing neurodegenerative disorders, cognitive decline, that sort of stuff. What's interesting to think about to me is also the opposite of this, meaning, okay, well, if messing up our guts affects our brain in a negative way, what does really taking care of our guts do for us in a positive way? And if we look at the things, when they're doing the research on this, of course this is in mice, but very applicable. If we look at the research and they kind of say, okay, well, if we mess things up, can we reverse that? And they see there are certain things that help reverse it. We'll talk about here in a second. Okay, well, even if you didn't have that problem, might it be a good idea to do those healthy things anyways to make sure that our guts are healthy? So maybe I didn't take enough antibiotics to completely clear my gut out of any living thing possible, but maybe, just through regular daily life, I've been exposed to a lot of things. I do my best when it comes to my gut, but maybe I just want to make sure that it's in as good a shape as possible. So I'll use those same treatments that helped fix the problem just to make sure I'm in good shape. Anyways, let's go ahead and dig in here. So essentially what they're looking at is there's a couple factors playing into this. There's the fact that the gut is directly connected with the brain. They're finding, this research came out a little while back. I want to say, this came back in 2016 actually. So this is a couple years old. It must have just circulated again because of some of the new research that they're finding as well along these lines. But there's a direct connection between the gut and the brain. There's a whole sort of kind of lymphatic system that helps with the interaction there. And there's also a lot of immune system communication going on as well. So when the gut has a problem, say you take a bunch of antibiotics, so you just take an antibiotic, a round of antibiotics, your gut communicates to the brain via white blood cells about what's going on there. And essentially what happens is it shuts down, let's see here, it shuts down the health and growth of brain cells. And, okay, here we go. So essentially they gave a group of mice enough antibiotics to essentially clear all their intestines of any sort of microbes. So they really did scorched earth on these guys. So when they lost their healthy gut bacteria, of course, their memory tests went down, and then also they showed a loss of neurogenesis, meaning new brain cells. They just stopped making new brain cells when their gut got messed up. That is in particular in the part of the brain called the hippocampus, which typically produces new brain cells throughout an individual's lifetime. So this is an area where usually we'll continue to get new brain cells. They obliterate the microbes or the gut microbiome and essentially shut that down entirely. So, of course, what happens? What do they experience? Well, they get neurogenesis loss, memory loss, a lower level of white blood cells. So now their immune system's also depleted, among other things. So really bad news for these mice. Now, what they found was that fortunately they could reverse this. And as you can imagine, there are a couple things that they had to do. One, they had to reestablish probiotics. Or reestablish the gut microbiome. And then two, they also used exercise for that. So things that helped the brain, things that help kind of feed the brain, that activity level, which creates plasticity in the brain or allows it to grow, and then also the microbiome. Now the interesting thing is, what they found, where did it go? Okay, so mice who received probiotics or who exercised on a wheel after receiving the antibiotics regained memory and neurogenesis, which is great. one result in the experiment. Okay, so it raised a couple questions here. So the interesting thing is how this all works out. So while the probiotics helped the mice regain their memory, the fecal transplants to restore healthy gut bacteria did not have an effect. So there's something more going on there. So giving that mouse probiotics had more of a global effect, and that helped alleviate these changes, as opposed to just doing a fecal. Now, we don't have to worry about that because people don't typically do fecal transplants. But if they just kind of essentially put the microbiome back in the gut only, it didn't have the same effect. So so essentially, that fecal transplant is said it didn't. It recovered the broad gut bacteria, but not neurogenesis. So it allowed them to get the healthy gut back again, and the bacteria was there, but it didn't turn that neurogenesis back on. And that might be just because of the long-standing effects of antibiotic on neurogenesis without using the detour through the gut. So those antibiotics don't necessarily just affect the gut, and then it's just the gut that affects the brain. It's that the antibiotics are affecting everything. They're kind of going to the brain directly and having an impact, and that's a big difference. So, of course, they're going to be investigating this a lot more, and this is something that we want to be conscious of. What does it mean for you and me? Well, it means think twice before using antibiotics. They're one of the most overprescribed medications in the country right now. They're widely overused. They're used when not necessary. They're used when it's not even a bacterial infection. So and they're also just very easily prescribed. No one is typically talked to about the long-term implications. Of course, most doctors aren't even aware of this. This isn't the sort of stuff that anyone is learning in school right now. You have to be keeping up with the research, and this is just a lot to ask of conventional medicine. So we need to be equipped. We need to go in there understanding what we're getting ourselves into, and we need to keep this in mind with making those decisions. At Hansen Health Solutions, of course, we don't typically prescribe antibiotics. That's something that we would use on a very, very, very last resort sort of basis. But we are in the habit of helping people heal their guts, establish healthy microbiomes, or reestablish healthy microbiomes. We are in the habit of getting people active and promoting a healthy immune system, promoting neurogenesis, etc. And one, we can help you out if this is something that, if there's a concern there that needs to be dealt with. Two, maybe you have already dealt with antibiotics, or you've been on a number of rounds of those, and you can see how it's affecting you, and you need some help getting back to healthy again. Give us a call and let us know, and that's definitely something that we have protocols in place for. A couple things that we'll typically do. One, of course, we don't do fecal transplants, but with probiotics, we have a couple that we found that work very, very well. We usually introduce them in a pretty mega dose sort of way, so very high amounts of those. But then it's also important to use a variety of them. So we've got a protocol that we've sorted out that seems to work very, very well in cases like this. And this is something anyone, if they've ever gotten antibiotic treatment or if they've just gotten them, definitely should consider. So anyways, that's the latest here when it comes to antibiotics, the gut bacteria, how that affects your brain, etc. Oh, and the other thing to consider there as well, if somebody has a neurodegenerative problem or is having some sort of cognitive decline, very, very, very important to consider what's going on with their gut and probably leverage some of these approaches to help reestablish or restore healthy function there, or at least mitigate some of that deterioration. This is Dr. Hansen again with Hansen Health Solutions. If there's anything we could do to help you out, just let us know. You can find our contact information below, and hopefully that was interesting to you.